just share a lot of the same ideas. And there's this thing on the SRC at UCT where the windows, you could like unlatch the window and then climb out on the roof. And you sit there, it's like very dangerous because like it drops and then like, it's like, I wouldn't recommend it. But we used to sit there, like, you can imagine the evenings sitting on that roof or the mornings with the sunrise. It was really cool and had these big chats about, we weren't really chatting about anything deep. We were just mostly shit talking everyone that we didn't like.
Like, as one does.
It was like we discussing like, politics or business ideas. I'm like, yeah, meanwhile. So yeah, that was how we kind of first became friends. And then Greg jumped on board with the idea a couple months after I started it, and was basically ever my entire life because Greg's very organized and he's very data driven. He's got like, both feet firmly planted on the ground, which I don't think I have my feet even anywhere near the ground. So we work very well together. And yeah, he's just incredible. He's the most competent person I've ever met my entire life. He gets stuff done, he works relentlessly. He's a very hard worker. He is like extremely honest, just extremely authentic, a no bullshit guy. Yeah, it's incredible. Like, finding a business partner is almost like finding like a husband or a wife. It's someone you're going to spend a lot of time with. You're tying your financial future together. You're showing bank accounts, obviously. You're signing documents on behalf of each other. You're going to be like representing each other, speaking on behalf of each other. Like, it's the kind of thing where like you can't tick boxes. You have to just feel it. It has to just feel right. Work. And it takes time. I mean, obviously now, I've known Greg for almost 10 years now. And obviously you get better and better as time goes by, but also almost straight away. Like we have this like mind reading ability. Like we're looking at each other and just like, we just like know what the other person's thinking. It's incredible. Like co-founders are, obviously there's the work element, you divide and conquer. And there is all the, the normal benefits of having people work with you. But more than anything, it's like it's the emotional benefits. And everyone says this, but it really is the most truthful thing that, it's hard. It's really, really hard doing this. You're going to go through really like tough times. Like COVID was horrific. I mean, Greg and I like cried pretty much like every day for like 2 years. But having someone to keep cheering you on, it's like, I probably would have given up 1,000 times if it wasn't for him. And I'm sure he would have done the same.
I mean, you said there's no box really. You gotta kind of feel it. But for individuals that are maybe they don't have people that were close to them, that they just stumbled and they came up with this idea together, and they're actively looking for individuals to bring on board to work with. What would you say are some of the things that they should maybe perhaps focus on to really identify
on a co-founder? I'd say the main thing is just like meet as many people as you can. So I like to call it, again, it's kind of like finding like almost like your romantic partner. It's a lot of it's luck, but you can increase your luck, by just meeting as many people as you can. So go to like all those. I mean, it's funny because like, Greg and I met through politics, not through tech events, but the more people you meet, the better. So like speak your idea into existence, tell everyone about it. No one's going to steal your idea. And if they do, like, they're not going to win. Like ideas are a dime a dozen, it's execution. Like everyone has said to me, oh, I had the same idea for student housing. I'm like, okay, where's your product? Show me. And they haven't done anything. It's like reading for 6 years now. Like, it takes time. So you don't lose anything by speaking about it. So just like talk about it. Someone will hear about it, be like, okay, that's really cool. So like you can search, but also you can attract. So go to like all the startup events, go to all the tech events, come to like these kind of events, speak to people in the comments and be like, hey, what are you working on? Go to, just like immerse yourself in the culture, tweet about it, like see tweets that are similar to what you're doing. Just DM those people, like just be shameless, go on LinkedIn, DM people there, talk about what you're doing, like upload things. So it's a combination of both like reaching out, but also attracting, and just speak to many people, and you maybe you'll chat to like, guys, like you're on 100 dates, and then one person you're like, okay, this is pretty cool, or you'll chat to 100 people. Like I try to partner with like 5 people before Greg and I really, like we started working on parties. So yeah, I mean, like it's you just gotta meet as many people as you possibly can, and then eventually it kind of just clicks.
Create the opportunities, essentially. Even though you said part of it is luck, but you gotta be active to some degree in order to meet
your own luck in a way. Exactly. Like if you sit at home all day and you're just like, I don't know anyone to work with, then that's gonna happen. If you go to like, okay, there's a co-working space in my city, I'm gonna sign up there and I'm gonna just be shameless. I'm gonna know everyone. I'm gonna speak to people like, hey, what are you working on? This is my project. I'm gonna go to cafes where I know people are working every day. I'm gonna go introduce myself. I'm gonna go to these kind of events. I'm gonna like look up everyone's names on LinkedIn and say, hey, I saw you at this event. What what are you working on? Let's grab a coffee. This is what I'm working on. Let's jump on a Zoom call. Just like, yeah, I'm going to go on Twitter and search in my city for people that are doing this thing. I search for people internationally. I'm going to go on Staff Accelerators and go apply for accelerators. Like it's just about like on the internet, you can find almost anyone, you know. If you kind of just follow your passions, you'll find people there that are like similar. Like when I move, whenever I go to a new city, like it's hard to find new people. So I go do things I'm interested in. Like I always join like a running club. And then there you'll like meet some people, and maybe some of them are dicks, but some are really cool. And so you just can like put the effort in.
Right. I love that. Let's talk a little bit about scaling. I mean, you've managed to really do something with DigsConnect, where you're now available in over 400 cities. You have more than 1 million beds worldwide. What are some of the challenges? Or there's a lot of challenges that come with business. What were the most challenging things when it came to scaling your business?
I'd say it's actually controlling the rate of scale. I think what it is like scaling is so exciting. Like it feels really good, and things that feel really good are often really bad for you. That's something I've learned.
Yeah. Right.
Like when something is good, you got to be like, what's the catch here? What's the catch? Because nothing is this good for free. Like
I love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
good for you often kind of suck. It's like kale. Like I will never, as much as I try to be like those fit Insta girls, as much as eat kale, like this stuff tastes like soil and it's disgusting. But you know, meanwhile, there's this huge plate of pasta next to me. I'm just like, that's really good, and it's gonna like shorten my lifespan by like 10 years. So I think scaling is obviously really exciting. It feels really good. You know, you're getting all these new customers, and you watch your numbers go up, and you're on your Google Analytics, and you're like, oh my gosh, to the moon. Obviously, lots of revenue coming in, and you feel like you're amazing. And then like these cool articles come out about you, and you're just like, wow, look at me. And that's always kind of like red flags going off. Like, and not to be like an ascetic, but I think things are supposed to be hard in a way. Like the big glory days are supposed to be like, you know, every now and again, you know, after like this stuff to base on. So I think when it comes to scaling, it's kind of controlling the scaling. Scaling also, mostly because scaling is expensive. If you take on, you know, more customers, you often have to hire more people or increase capacity somehow, and it comes with cost. But once you're hiring people and you're kind of committing to more cost, you're locked into that. And if those users go down for whatever reason, let's say there's a change in the market or a change in the economy, or somehow maybe because you're scaling so fast, you've like let the quality slip a little bit. For example, like we had like one season, we had so many booking requests come through, and we had undercapacitated with our number of support staff. And we had like thousands of backlog inquiries, or like someone requires a support message come through on our website, and we literally could not get to them fast enough. I mean, the wait, we had calculated how much time it will take us 6 months to reply to inquiries that we needed to reply in 2 hours.
Wow. Yeah.
And so they have to like rapidly hire people, but you can't train them quickly enough. And so they're often giving worse service to people because they don't actually know what to say. It's actually less helpful. There's nothing worse than calling in for help and someone doesn't know what they're talking about. You just like, so yeah. So I think controlling the rate of scaling is important. And most importantly is keeping a very tight control on your finances, like not committing to costs that you can't shoulder should there be a shock to the system in any way. Not losing quality of your product or quality of your service delivery, and not getting swept up in the glamour of it, which is, I'm very susceptible to. You know, things feel exciting. I'm just like, oh wow, look at us go, and I like take screenshots of our graphs and I send to our investors. Like, you guys get the right choice. Like, look at us going. Yeah, so I think controlling it is probably the hardest part, and not leaning into it and getting a big head.
So can one know when it's the right time for them to be able to scale? Are they clear indicators that you've seen in your own business and in other businesses that you can advise people on to look at?
Also, I'm not drinking beer here. I swear it's sparkling water. I'm obsessed with stuff. See, I don't drink alcohol, so I needed something to drink. It's kind of like not just water. So I found this like
Okay. I didn't want to say anything, but you do you.
Okay, you know, it's after 12 o'clock, you know.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, sparkling water, like it's got natural flavors apparently. I know, saw the news come out today that there's this type of sweetener that's carcinogenic. So now I'm like even more paranoid. I used to drink Coke Zero like no one's business. So now I'm like, anyways, that's a whole other story. So you were asking about how to know when to scale.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of like you'll kind of just know, everyone talks about product market fit. That is kind of the magic thing. And there's no kind of like hard and fast rule for that. The product market pricing fit, it definitely comes down to like the nuance of like your product or services and what you're offering. Mm-hmm. But you kind of know it. So people are like trying to rip it out your hands and they're like, oh my God, I need this, please. And you haven't got enough like people to handle the requests coming in, like we had that with that last season. We had so many booking inquiries coming through. We're like completely undercapacitated. So I think it's like you scale when people just are demanding you to scale, like if you're having to force your product on people's throats saying like, please buy, please buy, please buy, then like you haven't got it. But when people are just like buying like this and you're trying to keep up with demand and you just like, oh my gosh, we need to get there. We need to get like last season, we still have all our beds in Cape Town, and that was like, okay, we need to scale this. We need to get more stock here. This is like, this stuff is selling like hotcakes, this is like, someone just got out of cash and actually, I was going to make a joke. It's like, it's selling fast, so then it's kind of like, obviously you need to increase stock, increase your product stock, increase your offering. It's kind of like when you're working around the clock and your whole team's working at max capacity and people are threatening to quit because they're burning out because there's just too much work to do, then you know that like, okay, let's scale up or let's increase capacity a little bit. There's something to be said about maybe having some exclusivity, like not just having like free fall, but having like, buy now quickly. I think creating like demand in the market's really good because then you might have like more customers. But without again losing control of your like your quality, your service of that. It's like it all comes back to the simple question of like, what's a really great experience for your user in whatever your domain is? Like what experience would you want? And then like do that. And that's, for example, like with a long waiting time, that's a bad experience. If you want to find information about something, you want to get it now. You don't waiting even 20 minutes is annoying in this kind of economy. Waiting 2 hours, fine. But anything longer than a day, they're gone. Then you just like, I'm actually going to go somewhere else. So like that was a really bad experience. So that was an example of why we need to scale up there. So it's when people are just ripping your product out your hand. That's when you scale.
Right. And in your view, how do startups keep their innovative nature whilst also growing and scaling at the same time? Because it seems like as companies get bigger, they focus more on the growth and that than actually being innovative in order to actually survive within the market.
Oh, I love this question. So I am maybe a controversial figure. Jeff Bezos is a very good businessman. And I think that is a true statement. We can comment about everything else about him, which is, there's pros and cons to perhaps some of his activities in the global market, what he's done in many spheres of the world. But he took the rules of business and e-commerce and he won. If there's a problem with the rules, then it's up to policymakers to change the rules. But in those rules, he's a brilliant businessman. And he writes this letter to shareholders, which I would really say is recommended reading. Like it's really, really good stuff. And he has this saying that he says, every day is day one. And I love that. I really like that. And I'm actually busy reading the Steve Jobs autobiography by Walter Isaacson. And I wish I read it sooner. No, I didn't read it sooner. I think it was just like so
I saw that you posted that, yeah.
Oh, it's good. It's really good. And I think you look at these characters like Jobs or Bezos, and I think the parallels I'm finding right here is this every day is day one approach. And I'm actually busy speaking to, hopefully I'll be able to make an announcement. It's quite a big announcement pretty soon, the next month or so. But I've been working with this really incredible company. And the CEO and founder of that is this extraordinary businessman. And he's been around for a while and he's built some really incredible businesses. And he says, like, as you get bigger, how do we keep businesses like relevant, especially servicing a market like students where, which is very young. And then as like the founder of the team gets older, how they stay relevant. And I said, this thing with Jeff Bezos, every day is day one, I think is so relevant there because it's kind of like when you start out, it's so exciting. Like, okay, we're going to figure this out. We know nothing, blank canvas, let's start. And as you go, it's kind of like when you go from being a child to an adult, you start to have like ideas about how the world works. You go into autopilot mode. Your brain, your neural pathways become neural highways and you struggle to break out of that. And you just like, all right, so like you just make assumptions. This is the way the world works. This is the way it's going to be. So you start assuming things. You assume what your customers want. You assume that like things are going to work out this way. And then when like the material conditions of like the market changes or the environment changes, and if you aren't open to just like adapting to that, then I think you do lose your innovation. Things happening all the time. It's kind of like yeah, I mean, like just you evolve to fit a certain like environmental niche in the market, but then those conditions are always changing the whole time. So you have to always be like, am I, like, evolving is the wrong word to use, but I mean, kind of like that, am I evolving to kind of stay up to date with this, understand what customers are expecting from this experience. Every day is day one, I think. And just think about it the whole time, being like, you know, remember why you start, remember what you're trying to do here, not to get complacent, stay foolish, stay hungry, you know, and yeah, I think it's just that, exactly that approach.
How do you continue to stay hungry and driven every single day?
I think here's another one of my controversial opinions. If I start
Because it's the thing, like you said, like we get enamored with all these ideas and ways of how things work, right? And you know, we share the world with other people, and you think you understand things, and things get, you know, it's not easy. Things do get hard. So how do you wake up with that vig every day? How do you wake up with that vig every day?
Well, you know, I started this conversation by saying that I think about death.
Right. Going back to that. Okay.
Like the mortality and the preciousness of every hour. You know, it's actually quite helpful to chart out how many days of life you have left. You can do these really cool things. You can work out, you can draw like a 90-year lifespan in terms of dots, and you put those dots into columns and like 20-year blocks. And when you start, you know, counting them off, you kind of like, Christ, this is going fast, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's exactly that, realizing that like you have, you know, as far as we know, there's this one shot of life, and it's like, why not do something extraordinary? Why not do something extraordinary? Why not do something amazing? I think it comes back to every single day. Like, I hate, like, this. I think as an entrepreneur, you kind of like, you're a creator, right? But as a human being, also living in this kind of economy, you're also a consumer. So it's always attention between creating and consuming. And I find if as soon as I'm consuming more than I'm creating, I hate that feeling. I hate being like a consumer. Like, so every minute that I have, or every hour that I have, it's like, I think I just maybe just feel compelled to be like, I want to add to the world, not like take away from it. Obviously, if you're consuming, you're spending money, which is good for the economy and all that. But like, I don't know, I just find the act of creation so natural for human beings. And I think a big thing is that people often don't create for like really silly reasons. Again, it's like that shame thing where like, if you create something, people don't like it, or like, you know, they might be like, oh, I can't believe you like created that song or that music or did that Instagram post or wrote that poetry. It's really lame. But you know what? Like, it's that whole Theodore Roosevelt Man in the Arena quote. I don't know if you know it. It's incredible. Do you know the quote?
No.
Oh my God. Okay, let me quickly pull this up, because this is absolutely incredible. So this is like a huge part, I think, of what a huge part of what guides my thinking. So Theodore Roosevelt had this quote. I'll read it quickly. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or when the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred with dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms and great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows that in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails by daring greatly. So his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. And so like, it's that, like, just go for it, just do it, you know? That's the one part of my motivation. The other part isn't as noble, but I think can't be discounted. And I guess it's to say, like, never discount the power of of spite, like wanting to prove people wrong.
Right.
I think everyone's had people that kind of doubted in their whole life.
Right.
And it is so satisfying. It is so satisfying.
Right.
Someone, I told you so.
Yeah.
Watching me work.
Yeah. We all have different motivators. Yeah, that certainly can be one of them.
Never underestimate a founder with a chip on their shoulder. I promise you that person will go places.
I love that. And that reminds me, you know, I was listening to a podcast and I heard a video that said that it's actually not time that's ticking away, it's our life that's ticking away. Like, you know, we since we started talking, we 47 minutes, you know, closer to our grave. Like, really, we think it's time that's ticking, but it's just, and I try to look at it that way as well. I'm like, every moment I'm creating a memory. At some point, this conversation will be a memory where, oh my God, I got this incredible opportunity to speak to Alexandria. It was incredible. And so I love that. And I think that's a great way to look at it. Oh man, yeah.
Yeah, gratitude. It all starts with like, I think just like being grateful for life. And you're like, wow, I had so much. And like, I think what also changed my mindset was not being like, oh God, I have to work, but I get to work.
Right.
I get to do something amazing. It's like with exercise, I used to hate working out. I'm like, oh God, I have to exercise. Ugh. And I'll say I get to work out. Like how lucky you are to be healthy enough to actually go for a run or to like lift weights or whatever it is. Like everything has to start with gratitude. It has to. As soon as you're like resentful, entitled, then like then you just like get your mind right first, before.
I love that. Before I ask my next question, I just want to say to everyone, please feel free to ask questions on the chat. I will do a bit of a Q&A at the end, so please do ask your questions and I'll read them out to Alexandra before she leaves. But I love that, man. And so now I've lost my train of thought. What I wanted to ask, because there's a point that you mentioned earlier about the every day is day one. I think that's so powerful, and I encourage everyone to check out that letter that you mentioned, letter to shareholders. You said it is, and the book, of course. I think it's absolutely incredible. You are. It's very refreshing to see someone who's done so well for themselves be so free and joyful and enjoy. Because I think to some degree, people who obtain some sort of level of success become very serious about everything. Life becomes very serious all of a sudden. In order to be part of this room, to be part of this conversation, I need to be able to be serious. But you don't look at it like that at all. You're very lively. You enjoy what you're doing, and I think part of that, it resonates a lot when people watch your videos. Just having you here. And why is that? Why? I mean, obviously we've mentioned the death part of it, and that you think about it.
Thinking about death makes you happy. Who would have thought?
Right.
I think I understand the serious thing. I think that as your company grows, and especially taking on other people's money, like you are now responsible. I'm responsible for my team. I'm responsible for their livelihoods. They have their own financial obligations now. They've got rent, they've got mortgages, they're supporting people, and you have to take that very seriously. These are people's lives. You have your investors giving you their money. This is their money that you're not responsible for. You have a fiscal responsibility as director. You got people depending on you. I have all our clients, like our landlords depend on us before their rooms up. Students are trying to find their home, and a safe home that they're not going to get, scammed and or like that. So I think that as you supposedly as you kind of become more successful, you have more people depending on you and you have more responsibility in the world and you have to kind of deliver on that. So I think it's understandable that you have to take that very seriously, and perhaps people feel like if there's very serious demeanor, people think that they're very lighthearted. Like imagine if you get on an airplane and the pilot comes on, he's like, what's up? You gotta be like, I'm getting off this plane.
I'm good.
Actually,
I'll drive there.
Walk, like actually. So I think it's like if people that we place our trust in, or have very serious responsibilities, you kind of want to take stuff seriously. You want your pilot to be like, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I'm your pilot. We're going to be flying to 15,000 feet and taking left over George, and like, And so I guess it's kind of that, and that's obviously very important. I think people need to feel that what you're doing. They need to feel like they're in safe hands. That I think especially when things go wrong, people need to know that you can kind of call the shots. And so I think there's a time and place for it. Whenever there's like a crisis, I think that's very important to kind of like to get serious. But also I think there's a lot to be said about like calming the mood down. I think especially tense, everyone's going to be like ready to fight and feeling really stressed out, and not the serotonin, the cortisol's really high. And I've always found that being able to share a joke, lighten the mood, make everyone feel like it's human again, like we actually just human beings trying to figure something out, it kind of just lowers the tension and you can actually have a conversation. I think once people have like their backup, then it's hard to actually communicate because you kind of like you're on defense mode. As soon as you're in defense mode, you can't communicate then. It's like someone insults you and then you just like, what did you say?
Right, because you're reacting, not responding. Right.
Exactly. So I find that I think that being casual depends. Again, it's very context specific. Generally, that I find that like by taking people off their guard and just being like, let's just have like make people comfortable. Kind of like with a friend, you can joke around. You can. And I think especially now in this like cancel culture world we live in, it's like people have good intentions. You actually are kind people. Might make a joke that somebody like, oh, did you just say that? And then straight away you feel like I kind of should speak my mind. And So yeah, I think and from my experience, most people are really good people. Most people are really kind and they want the best of the world, and they're just lovely, you know. And I think if you let people be themselves and be authentic, they really just blossom in front of you. And so you can create a space people feel, you know, free and comfortable and secure and ready to like open up there how they feel. Like it's just beautiful.
Lovely.
So
All right. I'm gonna go to the chat and just read some questions from some of our guests that are joining, and we'll come back. Let's see here who we have. Let me go up a little bit more so I don't miss anyone. Paul wants to know, what is the value chain model of DigsConnect? And his second question is, how does the company create ecosystems, or an ecosystem rather?
oh, the value chain. I guess does value chain mean like who are our users and like what the value is we offer for them in a sense? I'll interpret it now.
I'll interpret it the same way.
Okay.
You can clarify more if that's not how we're understanding, but for now you can answer to that.
Yeah, fabulous. And so basically what it is landlords have, or, you know, like everything from your large scale property developers whose mandate is to obviously develop property and then rent it out and then get a return for their investors, to, you know, let's say just normal South Africans who have bought like a 4-bedroom house, whatever it is, they want to get financial returns. You know, they've got an investment and now they want to kind of get money for that. So they have a mortgage going off and they just need to get people to pay rent every month. So really, it's pretty much essentially like they just want to find tenants. You know, it's I think it's as straightforward as that, really. Like I know a lot of businesses are like doing very fancy things with AI and crypto and VR, and I don't think I'm definitely not smart enough for any of that. So it's just like landlords, just people want to invest in property. Property is an incredible asset class. It's very stable. It's tangible. But of course, you'll probably only make money if you've got tenants for it. And so it's just like, how do you just match up the right person, the right property? So it's pretty much as simple as that. And then getting the pricing right for that is interesting because South Africa is a very price sensitive market. And students are even more price sensitive.
Right.
So it's one of the nuances of working in South Africa and Africa as opposed to working, you know, in Europe or the States, is that there's a lot more money in those markets. And so people aren't as price sensitive. In South Africa, especially in this economy, and especially within this market segment, it's very price sensitive. So you got to figure out, okay, now if you're a landlord and you look at the expenses they have, you bought your property, you have a mortgage to pay, which is X amount going off, you've got your rates and taxes, maybe you've got some like, you know, security or support staff, whatever the property, which is all coming off in your budget. Now, if you're like a large scale, you know, property developer, or if you're like just like a normal South African who's maybe like bought you've got a main job and you've bought 2-bedroom flat, how much are you willing to spend to find a tenant? So you look at your options. Like you can either do like a marketing campaign. So let's say now a big residence might have billboards up, or they might do marketing in newspapers, or if you're a small scale landlord, perhaps you will do, you know, a social media post, or you know, you'll go on Property 24 or go to an estate agent. So I think it's like, you know, what are all those expenses that people are paying, how much they're willing to pay, and how do you basically get them a better service at lower the price. So if someone's going to, like, you know, build their own website and then like reply to that, you can cost the value of their time, and they kind of just like deliver that for them. So it's kind of like you just gotta figure out, you know, what are the steps the landlord's taking to find a tenant and then to like place them in. So your background checks, your leasing, your viewings, all those kind of things. How much time they spend on that? How much they spend on Property 24 or on Google Ads, all that is, cost it in. Be like, we can charge X much lower, and then at X many bookings, our company has, you know, good cash flow and a profitability of this. And I learned a new term the other day, EBITDA. So we're dropping that one in investor meetings. I still don't actually know what it really means, but I say it. It was like very impressed. Wow, EBITDA. I was like, yeah. And TAM.
Right.
TAM. I'm like, it's just market size, but people like
Right.
So yeah, it's that, you know, you have to figure out basically what are people willing to spend on something like finding a tenant at the same time, and you're just working in like that. And so it's a bit of like, you know, you can do some modeling and like do fancy Excel spreadsheets, but also it's a lot of just like thumb sucking, tasting, seeing the response, adjusting, putting it out there, adjusting until you kind of get it right. We don't charge students. It's free for them, but that's also very market dependent. So it's all about the supply and demand of different markets. So South Africa, obviously some markets, there's definitely, I'd say, an undersupply of demand. You know, Cape Town comes to mind for that. But most of South Africa is definitely, it's pretty evenly matched, and landlords are the ones that have more pressure, financial pressure at least, to find tenants so they're willing to pay. You go to a market like the Netherlands, and it is carnage in terms of an undersupply. There is so much demand there, and it's so tiny, and there's just so much water that there's not enough space to build property. And so like there you can never charge landlords because they wouldn't pay. They're just like, are you kidding me? I've got a waiting list that's like 10 years long. Why would I pay someone for this? Whereas the tenant's desperate, they'll pay you for that. So it's the model on its head there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
And the second part of the question.
Second part of the question was, how does the company create an ecosystem?
An ecosystem, that's interesting. Do you mean ecosystem in terms of like student living? I'm guessing like if students go to an area, what kind of ecosystem we're talking about?
Yeah, because I mean, really, when we're talking about an ecosystem, we're talking about one like startup ecosystem. It's created through different involvement of different people. So I also am not really sure if it means it in a sense.
I mean, the one answer I can give you, let me know if this is right or wrong, but I mean, like, often you'll find that when you bring people to a space, they're utilizing lots of services in the space. So, for example, one thing that we found was really interesting is that Pinelands in Cape Town has never really been traditionally a big student market because it's quite far from campuses.
Yeah,
we had this amazing landlord that started renting out rooms in her house because she needed the income for some medical issues she was facing, and she did really well. Really well, it's completely filled out because she had a really nice value offering. Her house was beautiful. She would cook for the students and she used to drive them to campus, literally like living at home. She was like a mom to her students, and it filled a niche. A lot of parents who wanted like a lot more hands-on support for their kids loved her offering. So she bought the house next door and did the same thing. Next thing you know, she had like 4 houses and this whole that's like an ecosystem. All these students that were having that, and she hired a driver for them, but it was like this mom environment where it was like extended family, home cooked, meals every night. You're living like in a house, with an adult to kind of like make sure things were working, which is really nice. You take an 18-year-old, put them in the digs, and like the geezer blows, they don't know what to do. They kind of like, what's going on. There's kind of like an adult that kind of fix those kind of things. And what's interesting we start noticing is that like, you put all these students in the space, suddenly like, they'll be going to the local cafes and spending money there. And so the cafes, we have like this liveness come in, they're going to the local salons, and the salons start blossoming and blooming. The spa on the corner starts blossoming. So if you bring people together, people are going to spend money, they're going to bring the energy there, and like really livens up the area a lot. So I guess in a sense that ecosystem starts popping up, as soon as you get people living in a space. That's all, what cities really are. It's people going somewhere and trying to make it work. And then people being their natural creative selves, they'll start creating art shows, galleries, cafes, events, study groups, sport clubs, live clubs together. As soon as you bring people together, they just like, it's our natural instinct as human beings to kind of like to congregate, to make things happen. If it's sport events, cultural events, studying events. So I guess you get those communities. Like if you bring people together, they just form those bonds. I mean, another story is quite cool is we've had so many people that have moved into houses and become like best friends with the people they live with. I mean, so many of us make our closest friends in school and university because it's just so easy to make friends then. We actually had a story where we hired 2 interns to work at our company during busy season, and they had both found their digs on DigsConnect, moving together, became best friends, and then started working at the company.
Wow, what a story!
Kind of like ecosystems where people
that's fantastic.
Yeah, so that was really fun. They actually ended up both getting DigsConnect tattoos as well.
Wow. It's better they both like the company as well.
We had one very wild summer when like everyone just started getting tattoos. That was a hell of a thing.
That's amazing. That's great. Did you get one?
I've got this thing called psoriasis, unfortunately. So my skin basically it breaks out when it gets into these like into like eczema when it gets damaged. So unfortunately I couldn't, but I was there live streaming the whole thing.
Being part of it. Okay, cool. Next question. What was your most effective user acquisition strategy at Alexandria?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the first one that comes to mind is probably our craziest one. And again, I think it goes to show that like, it's never a question. Everyone was asking me about investment fundraising. They're like, I have an idea. How do I get investors? And I'm like, that is absolutely the worst approach. If you can, never take investors on. Never. Like, stay as far away from them as you possibly can. And not to like rain on investors. And many of them are incredible human beings, but like it's just maybe create more shares and it gets diluted, but like the class of shares investors are going to get means often they won't get diluted. So if they do, you'll dilute down with them. So don't take investment on. Another thing is that once you take other people's money, you're not responsible for their money, which means that you're on the treadmill and you got to go, as fast as you can to keep your returns. You have to keep raising. So like my approach has always been, it's never a question of resources, it's a question of resourcefulness, and making do what you can. And I would actually say that some of our most innovative work happened when we had basically nothing, because you got to make it work. If you give someone a budget of like 10 million rand and you like do a marketing campaign, they'll probably like go to some like overpriced, ad agency and create like a film or something, or like an advert that costs about 5 billion rand that like 2 people will watch. And like it's a cool, it's very nice cinematography. But like, in the world of TikTok, people are gonna, aren't really convinced by that kind of stuff, I would say. Whereas if you say to someone, you've got like 10,000 rand, do something, you can't do stuff. So you got to think on your feet. And that's probably, I think, our most successful campaign is that when we just started, we saved up for 3 months to get 10,000 rand, and we went to UCT and we stapled our flyers to 10 rand notes and we threw it off a building, literally just into Jamie Plaza.
Wow.
You can still see the videos of the thing, but there's like, I think like 5,000 people there. It was absolutely crazy. Like front page of the newspaper, like
I can imagine.
In France, in China, talking about it. It was mad. I mean, it was like live streamed. Of course, there was good news, there was bad news. I was rugby tackled and punched in the face during one point. It was trauma to this day.
Oh
but
my God.
Like that kind of campaign was just insane. Like that was the day we basically like won UCT. We've hardly ever marketed a UCT since then. We did one campaign 4 years ago, and it's kind of just passed on year to year, from the 10,000 rand. Whereas nowadays people, I don't even know how much money. So there's like this big super app in China. They tried to launch in South Africa and it just like completely flopped. I think WeChat, like, and who knows how many millions they spent? Millions. I can just imagine. And it's like, how can you not make it work?
Right.
And so like, yeah, I don't know. It's just about, that was probably a successful campaign, and we had nothing, before we raised, before we did anything. And so it's just, I think, just be like crazy,
Wow. I love that. I love that, by the way. That's fantastic. Okay, I am gonna skip some just because so I can get everyone's questions sort of answered. Based on your knowledge of current efforts to promote your services, what are the significant internal barriers to selling your services to clients?
Internal barriers? I don't know if there's any internal barriers.
Maybe difficulties, but that could speak to the business, the market itself.
Yeah, I guess the main thing you got to do is, like, again, it all comes down to your value contribution. Like first of all, our clients will be our landlords, and I guess also, I suppose globally, I can speak more globally about it, because it has been difficult, as we've gone global. Like there are, in South Africa, we very quickly grew to become like the biggest in the market, and we just kind of got it right. I'm South African. It's the market.
Right.
My team's also South African. Like it was pretty straightforward. We just understand what people want. We understand the markets, and now we're growing in the UK. And I was like, oh yeah, the UK is very similar to South Africa. We'll be fine. It's been tough. It's been really tough. There are a lot of competitors here, a lot, and because there's so much more money to be made here, it's obviously very attractive. And so you don't need to have as much of the market share in South Africa they would have here, for example, because we're making 10x revenue with every booking we're making in the UK is making South Africa's rents are so much higher, because commissions can be high because people have more money. But that being said, you're facing like 100 competitors, and they're all funded in like pounds and dollars and like euros. So, and you're coming here with your rand, which is like devaluing day by day. You're like, I've got 2 rand. Like, what can I do? Like, I say it's a question of resourcefulness, but there's a limit to that. And I think,
of course,
I think I'm hitting the ceiling of that. So it's, you have to convince landlords, that there's a value offering here. So it's like, what are they struggling with? And when you have, quite a crowded marketplace, you have to really start thinking more creative, especially you're not from that country. You don't really understand the nuances. I realized that the UK and South Africa aren't as similar as I thought.
Right, yeah.
Not as similar as I thought. And like kind of what the landlords want and the nuances here. And it's definitely harder than I thought growing international. Yeah, but it comes down to really understanding like what are the challenges people are facing. And like there's some universal truths. Landlords need tenants. But the question of how to get there and the pricing and how they get there just needs some adjustments. There's no real internal issues. It's just a question. It's just a question. It's just a question. A question. Of making it happen, kind of like not just sitting on the laptop, but actually just getting out there, speaking to landlords. And that's been amazing, actually, just getting out and meeting them. And I've really enjoyed that. I've met some incredible guys that have been so helpful. And often you just need one person to believe in you and take a chance, and they'll introduce everyone else. So I met this one really incredible landlord in Liverpool. And he was brilliant. He was so funny. Oh my gosh, I've never laughed so much in my life. The British sense of humor was fantastic. And then I kind of spoke to him, and he gave me a lot of insight into, what's going through the mind of a British landlord as opposed to South African landlord. And you're just like, I would never have thought of that. Just like speak to people, really well with them, buy someone lunch and just like pick their brain, ask them for help. Hopefully someone takes a chance on you and they listen to your platform. Then you just like figure out how to make it right for them. And then met a landlord from Northern Ireland, and he was also absolutely incredible. Helped us in that market, because I was like, we're going to go to the UK, then we're going to go to the States in the same year. And then I was like, well, even just getting London right, and then Liverpool, and then Manchester, and then like Edinburgh, like those are all very different markets. Like Coventry is very different market. And then we're like, we cannot do the States until we've like better understood this, or of course until you get someone like on the ground who's local to help you, figure this out. So there's no real like internal barriers. I'd say it's just a matter of just like I'd say just getting your laptop and just being out there. You should be out. You should be out on on the streets. On the streets.
Yeah, not those streets. Love that. You mentioned competition, and the next question is: did you have any competition during the initial stages of DigsConnect? If so, how did you strategize against them? I.e., made yourself different to them.
So,
what made you different to them? Sorry.
That's actually the reason why we raised in the first place. So when I started, like, there was no real competition. It was just like other people have used that. There was nothing else. Like people were using posters on walls and were like, yeah, there's like nothing. So we started, it was us. And then obviously words started getting out about us. And then everyone started having the same idea and popping up websites. And we were like, oof, we got to move fast. And that's why we actually raised funding. We didn't want to, but then we were like, if we don't grow fast, like we're going to miss this boat now, because everyone's realizing there's something here. And it's one thing for like another, student to be like, I'm going to build a website, which could be a threat, but it's more like guys with like a lot of money, a lot of resources were like, oh, there's something here, government, or like companies that had like, a lot of resources. And that was like, okay, we need to move fast now. So that's what we raised. In 2019, when competitors started popping up, often what I'll do is I'd go on their website and find out who all their landlords were. I'd then get my team to call their landlords and offer them a discount to listen to our platform instead.
Wow. Wow.
That's pretty ruthless.
No, that's hungry. That's like, I'm doing everything.
I think to competition, Paul Graham always says, Paul Graham from Y Combinator, it's always like, every second you spend thinking about competitors is a second wasted. Just build a better product. And I agree. Like most of the time, just focus on your own thing, make it better, and then like people come to us better. But on the other hand, like why leave it to chance? If someone's popping up and you can just crush them quickly, I think just get it done. So that was pretty cool. That helped. I mean, not pretty cool. That sounds pretty ruthless, but that kind of just helped us secure that. Then during the lockdown years, all our competitors liquidated. It was really tough. I mean, it was really tough. We came very close to it ourselves. It was a rough market, and so I don't say that with any like glee. I'm not like, oh, ha, like it was rough, and they fought a good fight, and we made it through, and they didn't. So, but as you can never get complacent. You never know. Someone right now could be building our competitor right now. Someone could be launching it tomorrow. So you can never really get complacent. Obviously, the marketplace, the bigger you get, the better it is in a way. That's how it works, and so it's very hard to catch up, I think, when someone's going. So I'd say most startups die of self-inflicted wounds, not really outcompeted. So unless we screw up massively, like I don't say I'm not worried about it. Of course, I'm always worried about it. It's always back of my mind. I'm always kind of scouring, the internet, being like, who's popped up? You gotta be a bit paranoid sometimes. So that's kind of been our experience in South Africa. And in the UK, I guess we're the the upstarts here that everyone's trying to think how can they crash? How they're going to call our landlords to get them to. The benefit that we have is that working in South Africa means we know how to run very cheap. So again, these UK companies and these European companies and American companies are getting funded with big money. But now, ever since all these changes in the economy, and whereas, like, I think a global recession, basically, like, investors aren't cutting checks right now. And these guys are huge birds. They've got massive teams. They're very clunky, and they're paying salaries, like, in dollars and pounds and euros. And they're just used to burning. Whereas in South Africa, where it's not easy to get venture capital, we're running lean. And I mean, like, lean. So, like, we can pivot very quickly. We don't require a lot of capital to get going. And our cost base is a lot lower. So it means our profitability is a lot higher. So that's kind of your differentiating factors in South Africa. And you know how to run on, like, a shoestring budget. You know to keep your costs down, and you know just how to hustle. So that's the benefit, I think, of coming. It's very difficult, but once you kind of get going, there's a lot in your favor of launching internationally if you're South African, because you just got that hustle approach, Things aren't easy in South Africa. And so, like, if you go to market where suddenly it's like, you're like, oh my God, there's so much money here. It's kind of like, it's like you've been on a diet and suddenly, like, in the donut shop, and you're just like, okay.
No, you do not want to be there. Wow, lovely. Would you recommend joining an incubation program or an accelerator?
I think it depends. Like, everything depends. I'd say, like, you haven't really got anything to lose. If you have a very clear idea of what you want to build, and you can start, like, speaking to users. I mean, essentially, like, it's pretty easy what you need to do. Like, read 0 to 1. That's really good. That's kind of like all you need to do. It's just like, you have an idea, like, get some sort of prototype, even if it's like a piece of paper. I think, like, DoorDash is the example of a company where their product was like a PDF on a website, and it was like, that was it,
Wow.
Like, if you get some sort of very basic, even not like an MVP, even just speaking to users and doing, like, manual man behind the curtain, sales, speaking to people, be like, hey, can you just do the sale? That's basically your school. You don't need, like, a business school, an MBA or anything. Just like have your idea, figure out who your customers are, and just speak to them. Be like, would you buy this? And then create some sort of prototype, even if it's absolute, like, trash. There's a difference between product and product value. So, like, for example, the Amazon product, the actual website is pretty hideous. The product value is really high because you get whatever you want on there. So don't worry about building necessarily something like that doesn't look good, as long as it's delivered what people want. Unless, you're doing something that needs to be aesthetically beautiful, but, like, then that's your value offering. So I'd say, like, you'll learn more by actually just doing it. I mean, but if you don't know literally what to do, then incubators can be quite helpful. But I'd say, like, the theory, people would tell you until they're blue in the face what you should and shouldn't do, and it's going to go in one ear and out the other. Because that's what it did with me. I had those amazing mentors who were like, when you raise money, don't hire too quickly. And I was like, okay, we raise money, we hire too quickly, and then you're like, okay, I see now why they say that. So you can incubator, you got nothing to lose. You can also do online resources like Startup School. The reason, I mean, incubators are better because it's better to be in person, because you also would potentially meet more co-founders, and you'll get talks and access to mentors. So yeah, look, you don't lose anything. I'd say, why not? Just be careful in case a lot of incubators ask for equity, which is very expensive. So just watch out for, like, what you're paying for that, and making sure it's not like some sort of, like, scammy incubator. But the very well-known ones are pretty genuinely quite good. But if you don't want to do that and you're, like, ready to move now, like, then I'll say just do it. You'll learn the most by actually just doing it. Like, you got to screw up, you got to, like, like, one of the hardest things I remember we started was we had to get a lot of stock, because we launched a Cape Town, we had a lot of stock, and then once we launched in Joburg, we didn't have that much stock. So I went on Gumtree, and my plan was to call every single landlord on Gumtree. And that is, I don't know if you've done cold calling before. Like, it is horrible, right? So you go on.
It's not fun.
It was, like, hectic also. So I'm just like, hi, is this the 2-bedroom apartment in Bra? This person's like, how can I help you? I'm like, is this available? He's like, yeah, it's available. I'm like, do you want to list my website? And he's like, how dare you call me? I don't want you selling me stuff. And people are hectic. And so, like, you don't want to do it. But, after you've done your, like, 100th call, you're so dead on the inside that you just can, like,
thick skin. 100%. Yeah.
And you can do a startup course. People are like, speak to users, or you can just speak to your users. You can just take your phone, you can knock on doors, and you can speak to them. It's going to suck for the first 20 times, the first 100 times. People will be really mean, and you're going to say stupid things, and you're going to get it wrong. But eventually, just get it right. So I'd say rather just do it. But if you like, but also if you don't lose anything by doing the accelerator, or you can do both at the same time, then do both. Why not?
Why not? Love that. Two people asked this question: are you in any mentorship program? Or the other question is: are you mentoring any startup founders, and how are you finding it if you are?
I'm not in a mentorship program. yeah, I'm quite shameless in asking for help. So I'm very happy to kind of, to reach out to people and just ask for help and get advice. Yeah, I like the community is quite small, especially in South Africa. Like, so I have a lot of friends who I would say like I'm on like, I don't know if anyone are necessarily mentors. Maybe we mentor each other. I think just speaking about things out loud with your friends are the same boat is usually helpful. Yeah, not any programs. I'd say like I read a lot. I'm an obsessive reader, and there's so many great resources out there. So in a way, I'd say maybe all the books I've read, they feel like mentors to me in a way, the literature is just absolutely incredible. I'll say that, and the podcasts are amazing. And I'm not directly mentoring people. I think when I joined the NYDA board and started working on my book, I completely oversubscribed myself, a bit of more than the truth. That being said, if you can't ride 2 elephants at once, then what are you doing at the circus?
Love that. Love that.
So I haven't taken any mentors on at the moment just because my NYDA term ends next year, December. And I finished my book. I'm just working on the second edit now. So my book's done, hopefully, pretty soon. And then my term will be done. And then after that, I'm not taking anything else on. Never. Right. I'm not doing this myself ever again.
Right.
Then I have people take on space for, some angel investing, some mentoring. But until then, I won't be able to, I think, commit myself in a way that will do justice to any mentees.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you is you are obviously the founder, you're the CEO, but you're also the head of product for DigsConnect. Usually when a business or company gets to a certain level, the founders always take more of the exec role, taking the CEO role, but you've stayed the head of products. And I believe you're head of products since the early days. Why?
I think I am very inconsiderate. I just I have a very clear idea. Like I think in my dream life, I don't know if I am, a CEO. I think I'm kind of like heading up an R&D department of just like craziest, kookiest ideas and running with those. Oh, sorry, let me quickly just turn that off. Oh my, people when they send like 1,000 messages. There we go. Okay, so, sorry about that. Yeah, I think I love beautiful things, beautiful products that work really well. I love like things that just work nicely. I struggle to take my hand off that. I've struggled to like let go of that. We have an amazing product team, and I absolutely back them. But I still want to be in a case where like the buck kind of stops with me, so that if things go wrong, I'm the one who's responsible for it, because that's kind of the roots of it's kind of the crux of our entire thing. We're a product-based business. Product baked. So I think it's just that like I enjoy it. Maybe that's actually like the honest answer. I really enjoy that. I think I wouldn't have spent all my time on that, and less time on things like governance, which is
right.
Looking through things and signing off is pretty dull. I love the product stuff. I think it's really enjoyable. So maybe it's more out of just me having fun, doing what I enjoy.
Yeah.
I like just being in like in the weeds. I like operating.
You're very passionate about entrepreneurship, and I say this based on some of the things that I've read, the videos that I've watched, the information that I've gathered about you, and you're a very passionate person about that. Why is that?
I think I'm just genuinely a very passionate person, emotional, and I think the reason about entrepreneurship is because it's all these reasons. But I think like as a human, I think we naturally drawn to create. I think it's such a beautiful thing to do, to create, to build things. I think that the future is nothing more than what we decide it to be, And I think, again, I spoke about how much disdain I have for all the doomers and the gloomers who are like, oh, everything's so bad. And like it's only bad if you think you're a victim. It's only bad if you like sit there waiting for life to happen to you instead of making life happen. Like I think that entrepreneurs, like you kind of like it's the genesis of value creation. It's the people that are deciding what they want the future to look like. It's people deciding that, I don't like the way things are and I'm going to get involved. And it's almost addictive when you realize that you're actually the one. And this is like every human being. that's conscious, you're the one who's responsible for the world we live in, the state of that. You're the one who's responsible for the just or the injustice, for the state of things. And if you don't like it, like, it's up to you to change it. Don't talk about it, do it. And I find entrepreneurship is the perfectly packaged medium for that. And the idea of creating things and making it work is just the perfect package for that. I think if you're just someone who cares about the state of the world and you don't, have your head in the ground, I think this is exciting. I think it's very fulfilling, and I think it's also a responsibility for people to shape the world we live in.
I love that, Alexandria. I got a list of questions. I could ask you questions ever and ever. You are an incredibly lively, energetic, inspiring, and motivational person that I've met. I've really enjoyed this session, and I really mean that. I always say I'm very lucky to be able to engage with people like you and to provide opportunities for people who are part of our community to engage and learn from someone like yourself. But seeing you do it so lively and not take yourself too seriously, for me, I love that. And there's so many nuggets of insight that you provided today that are going to stick to me. I made so many notes. It's so many things that you said that really stuck with me today. And when you said it's never a question of resources, but about being resourceful. I love that. Thinking of every day as the last day or as day one, really. I think is absolutely incredible. I think the people that work with you are incredibly lucky to be able to work with you, and we wish you all nothing but the best. Thank you very much. And when you are back in South Africa, I would love to have you for an in-person event. So please do let me know. I still want to do that. Making time to being on our session today. Thank you very much, and thank you to everyone that joined. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, thank you, guys. Just before we get off, I just have to thank all our sponsors. Thank you to PayFast, thank you to Surf Fruit Juice, thank you to Workshop 17, Innova Network for supporting us and helping us put these together. Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening. For those who are in South Africa, those who are waking up, good morning. And cheers to you, Alexandra. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Cheers.